Namaste to everyone. Welcome to this special edition, which we're going to talk about. Is India ready to become the pharmacy of the world? We are. We should be doing that for a very simple reason. We have a huge population. So I thought 1/3 of the population of the world is basically India. So that's what we will. But I'd like to first introduce to you my guests and then give you a few facts and details so that we could continue our meeting. Today we have with us, I'll just name our three panelists. One we have is Dr. Ravi Prasad Mathur, who's the Vice President of the Supply Chain Management, Dr. Reddy's Laboratories. I will ask him that he's the doctor, medical doctor, or is a doctor of PhD on supply chain, because that's something which, if he's that was just a heard, that'd be wonderful. And of course, I'd like to welcome Mr. VICKRAM SRIVASTAVA, Head Planning Global Supply Chain of Sun Pharma. Please welcome VICKRAM. And the only thing I'll say is I think he's looking after the largest company in a way from India and maybe the third largest in the globe. So that's something which is wonderful. Our very own, if everybody should know, if you're in the cargo industry and you don't know who Mr. TUSHAR JANI is, then I'll be surprised, put it that way. A veteran, he's the chairman of the CS Group as well as the CSA Group of companies. He's also, what I love about him is that he's also the co-founder of the Blue Dart Express and the Blue Dart Aviation. So that's something which is unbelievable, but that's such a good thing to, and such a great thing to have you over here with us, Tusharji. Just welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay. As we go along, the first I'm going to just give you some pointers so that I'm going to set the tone so that we can then go into a question answer mode so that you understand what we're trying to look at. Basically, I would like to start with saying in the last 50 years, Indian pharmaceutical firms have become successful not only in meeting the domestic needs, that's what I talk about, because being such a population we have, but also achieving a leading position in the global pharmaceutical landscape. That's something which is really happening. Earlier in 1969, I'm taking you back at that time, we were just 5% of the global market. That's what we're looking at. Today, if I can safely say that India pharmacy is approximately about 85% of the global pharmacy in 2020. That's the kind of levels we're talking about. Indian pharmaceutical industry aspires to become the world's largest supplier by 2030. So 2030, we should be we are aiming to achieve a target of, at the moment, we are at US dollars 120 billion to 130 billion. And by that time, we want to achieve something like 41 billion. So that's an annual growth of about 11 to 12%. So if you're able to achieve that, and that's not difficult for India, 10 or 12% is not really difficult. That's something which we can easily achieve. So that is something which we look at. India is among the top 5 drug exporters to the US, if I can safely say that. And we are supplying something worth about $5.82 billion worth of pharmaceutical. But this is figures of 2018 and 19. And after the pandemic, the way we have supplied to the world, I think this figure should have really, really gone up. So once the new figures come in, I'll be able to share with you at that stage. Last thing which I want to mention over here is that, interestingly, the best in the class of pharma companies actually have an inventory. Now, this is where it is 64 days as compared to the Indian counterparts for 98 days. This is according to the GSI India, a global supply chain standard organization who came up with this. Along with this, the overall supply chain. Now, this is where one could debate it, one could talk about it. We talk about our logistics and warehousing cost, which is about 15% or 14% as the minister does mention, but compared to other countries. But this is something which also looks into other aspects of it, so one could actually debate it. So I'm not getting into that today. So coming back to our main points and something. So I really would like to start with asking all three of you, one by one, do you think India is ready to become the world pharmacy of the world? And if so, when do you think so we will be supplying to the whole world? So I would like to, ideally I would like to start with Doctor, but Doctor, if you heard me clearly, then I would like you to go ahead with it. That'll be, I know you joined us a little late. So Dr. Mathur, if you can take that first, and then I'll go to Vicky. That'll be just one.
Yeah, I heard part of what you said, sir. So I'll just try to make some opening remarks here. So I'll take the question, that you asked about, is India ready to be the pharmacy of the world? I think India already is the global pharmacy, and you would have seen, it has been established very well in the past few years, especially in the era of our response to COVID. Not only were we able to, vaccinate our own population very quickly, we were also supporting the vaccination drive of other countries. And even without the COVID-19 vaccines, a bulk of the vaccines globally are manufactured in India. And if you look at some other, if I were to give a number to it, 60% of the global vaccines is supplied from India itself. Okay, 37 with access to affordable AIDS treatment, we are providing about 37% of that of globally. And just to give you a little more perspective, 1 out of every 3 pill that is taken in the North America, that is manufactured in India. So we're already in a position of strength, where we need to go forward from here onwards is going up the value chain and focus on innovation. Because as we all know, our position over here is as that of a generic manufacturer. And what that means is only when these drugs start getting off patent a few years before that, we develop that in a non-patent infringing way. So that has, we have reaped dividends from that. But yeah, going forward, innovation is where we need to focus on and move up the value chain. I mean, just some opening comments from my side.
Thank you, Dr. Sab. I'm coming to Vikram. Vikram, you heard Dr. Mathur say that 1 out of every 3 pills which you use so he feels that we're already there. Sir Pharma, what do you think so? Where are we, and what do you think so is going to be achieved now?
So good morning, everyone, and thank you for that question. And I completely agree with Dr. Mathur. I mean, I think we can safely say that India is the pharmacy to the world today. And we are only going to get stronger and better going forward. You mentioned some figures in the opening remark, sir, in terms of how big the market is, and we are looking at double-digit growth for the next 5 to 7 years. And I would also agree with Dr. Mathur that we need to go up the value chain. And in my mind, if we have to become market leaders, so to speak, in terms of innovation, we need to look at how we can discover and design products. So I look at the pharma value chain across 4 Ds. Discover, design, develop, and deliver. So develop and deliver are the last 2 Ds, which I feel India pharmaceutical industry, the companies in India are very strong and in a great position. Like Dr. Mathur was mentioning, we make majority of vaccines across for the world consumption. In generics, we are about 35% of our goods are being consumed in North America. Even in Europe, we have a market leader position. But the first 2 Ds, discover and design, in my mind, is very important, which will move us the value chain, and especially more important in view of how we are moving from chemical-based drugs to biologics and biosimilars. Where how the mechanism of drug delivery is going to change, how we are going to have more patient-specific medications, so that they have more targeted therapies going forward. So in that phase, in my mind, it's going to, of course, change the paradigm of how supply chain management is going to happen around this value chain, but also in terms of what kind of drug development and delivery and discovery is going to happen going forward. So
I love that, Vikram. I quite like the idea. I'll come back to you a little later that you're moving away from chemical part of it. But first, let me go to Mr. Tushar Jani. Well, everyone talking about the value chain and stuff like that. Before you give your opening remarks, I want to add a little bit on this. 15% is your cost. Is that is going to come down in some way or something of that kind? So if you can add an element, let me ask you that.
I think the government is moving towards that part of reducing logistic cost. And in terms of the new national logistic policy, the United the logistic platform, I think the idea is that the logistic is working in silos, and if through technology we can get together, I'm sure the cost will go down. In terms of 15% cost, I'm not sure whether that's a cost, but at least we are not putting that cost to that. If one, as an ACFI, we did some work on this cost, and it was coming depending on the product. But average was about 8, 9, 10% maybe. Keeping that, because that's a very highly discussed subject. What I personally feel, that we have to get self-sufficient on raw material, mainly on the API, which is still be depending on China. And I think that would be a big revolution, what we do that. In terms of are we global pharmacy, answer is yes. And I think the great opportunity will come from the Indian pharma company. We will be the world's pharma e-commerce company, and that's the opportunity. I mean, sitting in India, Sun Pharma or Dr. Reddy's or Glenmark or Cipla's of the world now can deliver in 20 minutes drug anywhere in the world. And I think that's a power we need to create in India in partnership with all this pharma company. And I believe that's where we will be there. But from a generic drug perspective, I was told we have a 20% global market share. And if we reach to 40%, nothing can stop us. And the most important is our cost of production is compared to other countries is much low. Our regulations are much easy compared to the other countries. And number three, in terms of the value chain, and I'm sure these two gentlemen knows much more than what I know, but when we start developing onto the research part and have more molecules coming in, develop here in India and spend huge on research, nothing can stop us. This is what I think.
I love the positivity. Yes, we all would like to look at that. That's something which is going to be there. Vikram, I want to come to you. Like, there's something which is very intriguing, which TUSHAR JANI also mentioned. He's talked about cost of manufacturing is lower and stuff like that, which you also mentioned to me. With this, I really want to ask you, tomorrow, suppose China is supplying everything to the world at a much lower cost. Suppose they get into this, that's one part of the question. Then what happens to India and what's going to happen on that outlook? So that's one part of it. The other thing which I really want to ask you is, what kind of a support is there you guys get from the manufacturing and terminal operators when it comes to distribution and things like that? So I'm trying to mix the two and trying to figure out that what do you think about this? What's your view on it?
So very interesting question. I mean, first, and before I take that question, I just wanted to pitch in to what Mr. TUSHAR was mentioning in terms of, capturing 40% of the generic volume space in the world, etc. What I wanted to highlight is that, apart from the volume, where we need to, become leaders is the value space. I mean, we might be the pharmacy to the world in terms of volume, but if you look at the value at the global pharma value, we are probably only 5% of the value, Indian pharmacy. So there's a lot for us to grow. And I just wanted to put that thought out there that how we can, create value for the industry, for the stakeholders, and of course, make affordable drugs which can be, consumed globally and not just one particular geographies or few geographies, but for the 7+ billion people across the world. So I just wanted to, add that. But yeah, coming to your question, sir, I mean, in terms of,
Vikram, that takes you to your first 2 Ds, okay? That's where which you mentioned, you need to look at that more carefully. But anyway, go ahead. Let's talk about the other thing.
Absolutely. So, I mean, yeah, the China aspect, I mean, there are a lot of positives which are playing in favor of India in terms of, the openness to the industry, regulations. I mean, China has a certain, constraint when, companies want to move into China for manufacturing in terms of regulations, in terms of, the government policies, etc. So, and in terms of, the openness to the entire world, I mean, I think India is at a very nice position right now with the human resource, with the technology, with the infrastructure which is getting built over here right now. I think it will be difficult to replace India. India is placed very nicely right now, and we are in a position to call the shots because in pharma, again, if you have to look at moving across sites, like I was mentioning during our discussion prior to this starting of this session, that the regulation is so tight that qualifying an alternate site or a geography is developing the product from scratch, in terms of, doing your exhibits, doing your stability, going through the regulatory review cycles, etc. So I think we really don't have to worry in terms of, China coming in a big way, because the focus from the government, from the industry body in India is very strong at this point of time to this entire industry and sector.
Okay, fair enough. Dr. Mathur, you can hear me now. Actually, we lost you in between, but my question to you before, in the beginning when I was introducing you, I thought you're a doctor. It means by a medical doctor, or you're a PhD doctor, and would that be in supply chain if it is true?
It is. It's in supply chain. It's a doctor in philosophy.
Oh my God, that's wonderful. So we should be like talking to you more of the supply chain part of it and look into that. That's really good to know. I'm really impressed with that whole thing. Doctor, I'm coming to you with my question now. I really would like to put over here is something which is very different. How much does technology intervention and innovation is required? Because if you're looking at the supply chain and looking at global distribution and stuff like that, and a lot of people have different mindsets on that. But where do you see the technology and innovation from airports and that stocks this thing for the pharmaceutical to help them to make sure the distribution is all over the world goes very well, not just India?
Okay, so that's a very interesting question, sir. And I noticed that you're talking specifically from the logistics point of view. So see, AI is like more present in our life right now, and also digital in other forms than we even realize. I mean, if you have been following some of the new developments like GTP3 and GTP4 and those use cases based on large language models, if you've been trying that out, you can see that how evolved AI has already become. And on the pharma side, also there are use cases of AI right even in the areas of development, in identifying target cells and in identifying molecules that will work for certain therapies. So even in the drug development stage itself, you are seeing AI helping.
So SanJeet, before I come to you, I know Vikram has to also leave, but I thought I'm going to take the liberty of asking him the next question before I come back to you. But in the whole picture, I'll put that whole thing. Vikram, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here. Okay. I'm here.
Now I'm going to ask you something which is again taking on technology. How much emphasis has been given to reducing paperwork and making operators more effective as far as you're concerned? Because you're going all over the globe, and I would like you to also compare this not just in India, because you have got factories all over the world. You talk about Brazil, Africa. So just also compare it from there, and what's the learning for us? Go ahead, please.
So absolutely. I mean, going paperless, is, you're putting your entire audit trail digital footprint. So as we know, we come from a heavily regulated industry, and anything we don't believe in Six Sigma. Every pill that comes out of a batch, 1 million pills of batch or whatever however big the batch is, every pill has to have the same efficacy and efficiency. I mean, so it becomes very important that we have complete traceability to how the batch was manufactured, what kind of products were used, what was the testing of the raw material, etc. And that is where a lot of digital footprint technology is helping us bring that visibility and traceability back into the whole value chain, right from dispensing of the material all the way to delivery to the patient. So it becomes very important, and of course it also plays a very important role of being sustainable. I mean, in terms of how we are deploying paperless activities, how we are using technology to improve, reduce our carbon footprint, etc. And I mean, so it's a win-win in my mind. It's improving your traceability, visibility, and from a audit trail for regulators to understand the product flow. It helps, the technology helps, and at the same point of time, you're being sustainable in your operations. So it's a win-win in my mind, and it's a no-brainer. I mean, that's the way going forward, and that is the way technology is going to help us, do manufacturing in a sustained way.
But Vikram, hang on. Is this the same thing which is adopted by other countries, or are we ahead, or are we behind the curve as far as this is concerned?
I would say we are probably just at par, if not behind. But we are probably, because again, the benefit of being in this industry is that the regulations are uniform, so to speak. I mean, the regulators are all become very active. The regulators, and with the number of manufacturing setups and facilities we have in India, we have more than 10,000 manufacturing facilities in India. I mean, so with that kind of footprint that we have in India, going digital, having technology to monitor activities across all these facilities for the regulators also becomes easier. So technology is definitely going to help in monitoring all that.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to come to Doctor. I'll just come back to you in a minute after. Just Tushar, I just want to ask you something which is very interesting, and I'm going to go back to that you said about the value chain, what VICKRAM mentioned and all that, and you said you want to become 40% of the world market as far as share of generic drugs is concerned. That's what you're trying to look at. I want to ask you, are we in the right path, or is there something which is deterring us at the moment? And second thing, which my question is back, which you started was, I'm asking you still again, what stops China of getting into this in a big way at a low cost? And
I think so. And again, I'm biased being Indian. The first thing is the reliability which India offers. China can never offer, especially after COVID and what happens with the COVID and the other stuff what the India is looking. So I think we are starting with strong foundation that India can be reliable, number one. Number two, India has always been good in value addition when it comes to pharma, more than China, because China probably has a volume, but in terms of various other products, if you look at it, the good probably as intermediary, other as a component or raw material, but when it comes to the final finished product of a high caliber, I'm sure we are able to beat Chinese at other. The only thing what we don't have a scale what China can give. And I think so we as an India must do that scale. And as VICKRAM mentioned, the government is putting PLI scheme, the API development, the pharma manufacturing park, with all that. I think we should be there. And I'm very clear, India is going to remain pharmacy of the world for a long time. I see it at my terminal every day.
All right, I'll go with your gut feel. I love that. Dr. MATHUR, I'm coming to you kind of situation, and I know you missed out a few things in the middle, but I really would like to, I know you were talking in between, but I thought let me rephrase it in a different way. Are you happy with the initiatives taken of improving the quality of distribution and everything in the pharma industry? What do you think about that? Doctor, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
SanJeet, can I answer you on that distribution of pharma in India? And VICKRAM will bail me out this.
Sure, go ahead.
I always ask this when it comes to domestic, and it was shock to me when my wife was with me, and when I went to a drugstore asking medicine, and she asked for a discount, and the drugstore gave 10% discount straight on the MRP what was there written. And being a supply chain logistic guy, I said, wow, I smell something. And then I said, let's work backward. I think that there is a good amount of efficiency to be bringing into the domestic supply chain of the pharma. And we are still the lowest in the world. Your antibiotics or your aspirin or your paracetamol is what 10 paisa tablet in India. You go anywhere in the world, you will never get it. So I think we have done wonderful in terms of it. Second, to your earlier question, which was to Dr. MATHUR, I think we are the great world's laboratory. 1.3 billion people, somewhere someone is, kind of getting sick. If you use those artificial intelligence, machine learning, get that data, imagine that added to the research would be so fantastic. My family foundation trust was running a tuberculosis hospital, and there was no tuberculosis in the world. It was only India. And we had a 4,000 patient every year. And the kind of data what I had, I got $70 per patient to give that clinical data to the foreign company, on that. So imagine the kind of clinical data what we have in this country. If we just collect it and use it for our advantage, we can beat anybody in the world.
I totally agree. I didn't want to touch that topic of the discount part. I agree. Internet, you even still get a 20% or 25% discount straight. So I understand the logistics there, and I'm not even debating that. But Vikram, I know you need to also go, but I want to ask you something which is very important. And that's something which you also mentioned about designing and discovering medicines and all that for putting up the value chain, which is very important. My question to you would be two parts. Where is the money going to come in for kind of situation when you do that? Who's going to put in that money? Because that's research and stuff like that. That's one. Second question with that is going to be, sorry, it's not about distribution, but India is very, very famous across by Ayurveda and our self-herbs and things which we do. Is anybody looking at that kind of aspect also? And if you are supplying and taking things to the world, how does it help?
So, I mean, first part, I mean, the industry is going to put in the money, you got to have that faith that, today drug discovery and design is costly, it can cost you anything between $500 million to about a couple of $1 billion, depends on what therapy, what kind of, formulation, etc. you're looking at. So, it's a huge investment, but I believe that the market is out there. Like I was telling you, we are only 5% of the global market value, The pharma industry, the healthcare industry is about $1.5 trillion globally, So the market is huge. And if we keep that aside, the global market, just look at India. India is expected to double in terms of market value, in terms of it's expected to become about an $80 billion, industry in India itself by 2030. That is 5 to 7 years. So there's a lot on the table. And the industry, the fraternity, the government is realizing the potential as the spending power for Indian population is also increasing. The spend on healthcare is going to improve with e-pharmacies, with technology, the way we are able to access doctors, medicines, insurance, everything is going to improve. So there's a lot on the table, So in my mind, money is out there. We just need to know the right places to spend, there's no dearth of, financing this in my mind,
Okay, I hope that we can find the money for those kind of researches and stuff like that. That's something which is very important. Dr. Mathur, I'm going to come to you now. I hope I don't lose you this time. But what do you think? So coming back to the initial question which I asked you, what are the initiatives you think which is needed to improve the quality of the pharma and how we can really look at taking Indian products to the world?
No. Are you talking about how to improve the quality of the pharma? Is that the question? Pharmaceutical medicine?
Pharma and the distribution part of it with it, sir.
No. So as far as the pharma product per se is concerned, I think the quality is there, because if you did not pass that filter of quality, no regulated or unregulated market will give you entry. Okay, so that is the basic hygiene, not only in the quality of the product, the quality of your systems in manufacturing, quality of your systems in supply chain. Without quality, you're not in business. Let's be very clear. So I don't think there is any iota of doubt about the quality of the drugs and the drugs that are being manufactured in the country and are being supplied to.
Sorry, my question is coming from the fact which you heard what happened in some more countries with the drugs which we had supplied and all that. So I don't want to hear those things in future. So
no, that was probably the only case you would have heard of. I don't know, all the years that you would have manufactured. All the years that you have been monitoring the pharmaceutical landscape, they were misses somewhere. Obviously, I will not say they were not misses, but these are just outliers. And I'm sure the regulators and the manufacturing companies in question have taken corrective and preventive actions on that. So now coming back to the second question on the supply chain. Yes, I think the supply chain, which is largely dependent on the external world, while the pharma does have good manufacturing practices and good distribution practices, and from my many years of experience in having worked with logistics companies and logistics providers, I think all the knowledge transfer actually happens from the pharma manufacturing companies to the service providers, whether it is good distribution practices, whether it is how you have to audit your warehouses, how you have to audit your supply chains, how you maintain cold chain transportation, all the know-how about how the handling is to be done in the supply chain my experience has been that very few players come with that expertise on their own. I mean, so much so that even for a simple form, which we call a CAPA form, a corrective and preventive action form, we have to follow up, we have to educate, we have to tell people how to fill it up, and people have to understand a CAPA is a real CAPA. You know, once you have put in a CAPA, then that mistake should not happen again. That root cause should not be identified again. But then what we realize is it is the extended nature of the supply chain, especially on the airports, airport tarmacs. You don't really have a CAPA, you don't have solutions, you know, regardless of how many PowerPoint presentations 3PL put together claiming to be pharma specialists, those solutions are not there. Now you would imagine that maybe on the sea freight side, again, those solutions are there and the gaps are not as much. But unfortunately, even on the handling of ocean containers, reefer containers, there is a point of time when the container is off the power or, you know, on the port and it is powered onto the vessel. And there is no line of sight. Shipping lines don't share data. Port authorities do not share data. There is a total lack of transparency over there. That's a huge concern for us. So I will not say that the external practices or the systems or the processes or even the understanding is there in the external world. I'm sorry, I'm making some very strong opinionated statements over here. But I think the logistics world, external logistics world really needs to catch up before it can claim that the distribution practices, not only in India, even abroad, they are tuned up to meet pharma standards. That's my point of view.
No, well said, Dr. Mathur. But I want to come here. What you said initially in the beginning, you talked about AI and discussing. Doesn't that all come into your technology and now help you with all the handling, especially because if I'm not wrong, most of the pharmaceuticals is by air. So if I look at from that point of view, is not that solving the problem, or you think we are too much on a nascent stage at the moment?
No. So these use cases are there. You know, I mean, just recently I was going through a use case of a very big container yard in North India, and I will not name that particular implementation, but over there using data, using AI, the queue at the gate of that container yard, which used to run into many kilometers, because of advanced data validation and AI, the queue, which could be a couple of hours, was reduced to 2 minutes. So, but then it was a huge implementation. You know, it required governance, it required processes, it required education and training and all that. But it is possible. So these are early days. It's not impossible. We can get there. But right now, what I'm telling you, there are gaps and there are pain areas which are very fundamental in nature, which have not been closed.
But here, Doctor, I agree with you. Sorry, other two gentlemen, just give me 1 more minute with Dr. Mathur. Very well said about AI and all that. I understand that. But sorry, I want to ask you over here is, what is the mental makeup of people? Because at the end of the day, it's the people who are doing this. And if you see some of the logistic people and all that, if they don't have the mindset for implementing this technology and going along with it or not taking time on it, things work much faster. So where does that fit into this whole thing?
No, see, listen, people, if they see the benefit coming out of the adoption of the technology, it will happen on its own. Then you don't really have to drive change. You don't really have to worry about adoption. And I use this example very easily. I mean, look at our use of smartphones. It's technology. How much convincing did you require, or did we require to adopt it? You know, nobody convinced us to use smartphones. We see the value. That's why we use it. Now there is a new app, any new app that you find, on any of the platforms, you download it on your own. Do you require a training to be given to you? No. This is so self-explanatory, so user-friendly. You download your apps, you learn how to navigate it, you learn how to use it, and then you start using it. So if the value is getting unlocked, it is solving a problem for you, it is helping you solve a constraint, it is helping you monetize something, better, then the adoption will happen. Now, where does it fit into the logistics equation? Throughout the flow, there are constraints. A gate entry at an airport, for example. A loading of a container, say, at a rail yard, or waiting for the customs officer to come and examine your shipment. So throughout these flows, especially in shared infrastructure like airports or ICDs or ports, there are points which are constrained, which become bottlenecks. AI can predict those kind of bottlenecks coming up. And based on those insights that AI can give you, okay, you can elevate those constraints, you can remove those constraints. So that is where the use of technology is, where you get either data from devices or you're looking at historical data. If you can use that data to identify where your constraint points are and then ease the flow, that is where the value will get unlocked for everybody in the supply chain.
So doctor, what you're saying is pre-warned is pre-warned is pre-armed, which I understand that. But here, doctor, I would like to really come to Tusharji. I want to ask you over here.
SanJeet, I would like to respond to Dr. Mathur.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
I may say so.
Please go ahead.
I just want him to know, in Mumbai, we have done following in terms of man and technology. He's 100% right. The technology has to be used extensively. So we have done one thing as a logistics service part of the industry. We have a pharmacist working in our company. I don't need a pharmacist, right? Basically. But the pharmacist's job is to bring empathy among our workers that this drug is for what and what it can do to patient if you handle it wrongly. So today our boys and girls, when they look at the name, they would say this is for depression drug, this is diabetic drug, this is polio vaccine. So idea is we created that empathy, number one. Number two, what we did, we mapped the whole terminal, every corner, right? And we had put now those sensors. Now these sensors give temperature of every corner of the terminal, and they are available to you on your mobile, what we call Turant app. You type your airway bill number, it will tell you what is happening to your consignment while it is within our terminal and at what temperature it is. Now this after mapping, we have used AI, this system tells us 3 days before if some event is going to happen, or if that particular dock where the unloading is happening, where we need to increase our air condition if there is too much movement of opening. So we are using it, and I think it needs a greater partnership now. And Dr. Mathur said that they are teaching their partners what is the drug about. Now I'll give you simple, what we were told by vaccine, that if you throw vaccine with a higher pressure onto the floor, it solidifies. The vaccine becomes bad, right? Now these are few things which we would not know. So the idea is, and one of this, SanJeet, what you're doing is to propagate, and I'm in touch with VICKRAM as well as Dr. Mathur both to expand our partnership and our joint discussion like this to propagate and build that awareness at the end. So idea is, yes, technology, manpower interaction, right? And look at the future, how we need to, gel therapy is going to come, right? How the logistic would work in gel therapy.
But Tusharji, sorry, I understand this very well. I understand what you're trying to say and do great. Kudos to you. But I really want to ask you, let's not talk about let's go down to smaller logistic players and all that. Adoption of technology, great. Its cost is there. Less money to be made. Where do you balance the whole thing? Sorry, as a logistic real person, I want to ask you, because everybody can't change in one day. You can, maybe, but where do I draw the line with everyone?
Well, I think so. They're both my customers. They should be answering this.
Because
I think the solution here is this technology has to be democratized, and the cost of using adoption of technology has to really come down. And I just repeat like what I said earlier. If you make the ecosystem available, then people will adopt it. And I like to give an unrelated example today. How easy it is for people to create online content. You see everybody creating online content, whether these are Reels or YouTube or so on and so forth. Not only are people creating it, they are also monetizing it. Now, why is it possible? Because access to that technology is there, and it is possible to use it. Okay, so the digital revolution that has happened in India, it is because of the ecosystem that has come up. Because if you want some development to be done, you know whom to approach. What kind of a consultant to approach for what kind of an implementation, who can do what development for you. So that ecosystem to be there, and then access to that ecosystem. Similarly in AI, when you know how to put together an AI box, and people have access to it, it will become possible. It will be happening even in these small companies. It will happen in the medium companies, and of course, it will happen in the large companies also. So the challenge over here is that how do we make these developments accessible to everybody?
Doctor, I agree with you 100%, Mathur, but my last question before I go to the winding up part of it, I really want to ask you, costs. Okay, you're talking about technology. I totally understand. It does bring down costs and stuff like that. But does that also mean that the logistic player who's doing that, his money is going to go down, or will you keep that afloat? Where do they go? That's to both of you, you and Vikram. What do you think? Would you maintain the same levels that they earn enough? Because I do understand you need to do audits, you need to teach them, you need to go work with them so that they improve, and so does the own distribution system. So any of you who would like to go ahead?
So Dr. Mathur, you want to go first?
You're asking about how do you protect the revenues of the logistics companies?
Correct.
Okay, I think there is a statement made by the leadership of OpenAI. We have been playing around with ChatGTP, and it openly says that with the new GPT-4 and the other future rollouts, a lot of jobs are going to go away. That's a fact. And these new AI technologies, they are able to even write codes. They are able to program. Now, if you just look at the value chain, part of the value chain that a logistics service provider conventionally handles, it is picking up a freight based on a tender. It is booking at that freight and that visibility, custom clearance of that, and then of course the track and trace and all the event milestone monitoring. I think the core part where in all these multi-billion-dollar companies have been put up on international freight forwarding, it is to do with booking of freight. I mean, look at it as a parallel of ticketing in passenger. Okay. Now, I think that is the easiest part to automate. If something like AI comes, all you need is a dimension of my cargo. Okay, what is the volume and weight of the pallets? What is the destination? And all of this will get automated. There is no escaping it. That is bound to happen.
But Dr. Mathur, what you're doing is you're taking away that institution of cargo, because I don't want that to happen later, that suddenly you find that they're just, like you said, ticketing agents, or they're just a booking agent, and the rest of you guys are manufacturing and doing it yourself. So my point is that you'll have to protect them and grow with them to take them to continue with working with them.
I think the onus is on the logistics company, and I have been very vocal about it for the last 10 years. In every forum of air cargo, I have been talking that technology is going to come and hit you, and this is happening.
Okay, because would you?
If I were to just let me possibly oversimplify it, if I were to oversimplify the business model of a freight forwarding company dealing in air freight, that business model is booking of cargo, issuing of airway bill. Is the issuance of an airway bill, period. That is an activity that can be automated overnight if somebody wants to do it.
Yeah, but if you don't have them tomorrow, you have trouble, because please understand, in this part of the world, things don't work that way. But anyway, I'm going to come to you back. Vikram, are you going to protect your?
I have a slightly different position than what Dr. Mathur is saying. I think logistics service providers have a huge role here to play going forward in the entire distribution network. I think Mr. JANI was talking about, he used an anecdote where he went and he got a discount, 10% discount. Where is that discount coming from? We have to understand that currently logistics and distribution is very unorganized in our country. There are a lot of leakages happening. And I think the service provider, the freight forwarders are here. If they can partner with technology and with the manufacturers and the regulators, I think there is a lot to plug over there. And I don't think there is risk of their revenue or, their revenues going down. It's just that plugging the right holes so that the leakage stops and the growth is going to be there, because as we are going to get into more sophisticated drugs and, technology, cold chain, we need the infrastructure and technology, and that can be provided and supported by the service providers, and they can partner with the industry players to, cut the losses and make it a win-win situation, ensuring the safety and, in the distribution supply chain of the drug, make sure that the supply chain is safe. There are no spurious drugs coming into your supply chain, ensuring that, the temperature excursions are not there, so that the efficacy of the drug is maintained. So in my view, there is a huge part which the logistics service provider, with the entire logistics industry, the distributors are going to play going forward, especially in wake of e-pharmacies also coming in place. How we are going to distribute to the patient's doorstep. So I mean, a slightly different approach to what Dr. Mathur was saying, but yeah, that's what I think.
VICKRAM, point taken. I'm going to go last.
I would just like to respond, SanJeet, if you don't mind.
My question to you is, they are now gunning for you.
I'm just saying,
or you got technology.
I entirely agree with them. Absorption of technology is not a problem. But understand our problem, and which is a lot of industry's problem in India, is getting skilled manpower. Unfortunately, in logistic industry, people do not come forward to come work. If he's going to get a job with TCS or some other company, he will not come and work for us. That is the challenge what we're going to face. So all this replacement, I would love to put robotics in my terminal tomorrow. Everything is automatic. But who is going to come and work for me? I mean, he's going to work in maybe some automobile company rather than working with me. That is the challenge what we're going to face.
So, Mr. Jani, I'm not talking about automation, and I'm
talking about basic technology, Dr. Mathur.
I'll tell you the problem is, like Vikram said, the entire logistics chain is highly fragmented, is highly disorganized. Okay, what that means is that there is inefficiency which is built in. Now, inefficiency is not just inefficiencies. Inefficiencies come with a cost. Okay, if there's a time delay, it leads to demurrages, it leads to detention. In some way or the other, inefficiency will come up and manifest in your business as a cost. And the analogy that I like to use sometimes is the moment your shipment is out of your gate, the moment your invoice is cut, in logistics, the meter is down. Okay, till that time your receiving warehouse actually receives it, every day that you're spending in the chain is a cost. Now, it is technology which has to be used in such a way that these hidden inefficiencies are exposed, and thereby the use of digital platforms to create transparency, to create visibility, to create that opportunity for early alerts for you to take action. So digital is going to remove those inefficiencies, and that is where the expectation is. So I do not believe your revenue is going to go away. It's only new skilling that has to be required. That is reskilling that is to be required.
Doctors, I'd like to come here to wind up. My last question to you would be, and I think this is something which you really need to look at. Understand one thing, we have to be very clear that the logistic partners are not going to go away. You need them today, definitely. You people are doing, all the corporates are doing a lot of money spending. You're doing researches, you want to go online, you're going on technology basis. My question now to you and VICKRAM would be, how much of responsibility have you people taken to train your partners? How because you have to grow together. You can't say ki, I'm gone ahead 5 miles and my supplier is still doing paper and all that. That's not going to happen, because you both have to work together. So my point is, or you get into a situation where you say, I do it myself. That's not your line of business. So if you're going to look at it from that point of view, have you both thought about where your responsibility lies and how much of time and energy you need to do to work with them, to teach them, to train them and take them to the next level?
No. So I think it is happening from the manufacturing side also, and maybe VICKRAM can comment on that later. But we, as a part of a quality systems, it is a part of a process to keep on not only training our partners but also auditing them. Of course, we need to do much more of that. And I think we will in the days forward, we will do much more of knowledge impartation and training to 3PL and 4PL partners, and a lot of it is also driven by regulations. So you have, say for example, in North America there is the CTPAT audit that is done on security. Here in India you have your own AEO system where you have accreditation of the exporters. So a lot of compliance related drivers are also there, wherein not only the manufacturers but the entire ecosystem needs to be brought on a common platform. And on the manufacturer side, I completely agree with you where that knowledge the transfer of knowledge has to happen.
Okay, thank you, sir. And the last word, Mr. Tushar Jani, I'm going to come to you. Now, point is understand that a lot of logistic people work on wafer thin margins, and you have to invest a lot in people and manpower and technology and other things to really keep up with them. So my point to you is, and I don't think ever we are going to be in a situation where we won't have logistic partners, because that's not going to happen. But my question to you is, what is your expectations? Now, they know that their expectations from you is to take up the product and deliver it. What are your expectations from your partners? What are you looking at from them that they should to grow the industry and to rise together?
See, post-COVID, the supply chain is in forefront, and Professor Zach, Dr. Mathur, has got his room now next to CEO, and CEO doesn't take any decision without consulting Dr. Mathur. So that's a change which has happened, and I think which is a very positive change. I think what we are looking as an industry to work with our customer more closely. We want to get into innovation with them, sharing of knowledge, sharing of data, especially pharmaceutical industry. Sharing of data is a challenge, which is I can understand from their part. But with blockchain and all, I'm sure technological we can find a solution. Idea is, I think, what is cost to us is cost to them technically. And we have to reduce this cost together. It's not that my cost is reduced and my margin has gone up, and their margin, if they are not survived, I'm not survived. So every paisa saved by Dr. Mathur, I will get maybe, 1% or 2% basis of that. So we have to work together in terms of new technology, new ideas. And, people like Dr. Mathur are very active on those kind of situations. So I think we expect as an industry more closer partnership. It should not be, the commercial driven. It should be a value driven. Am I adding value in long term for Dr. Mathur's company in terms of what I'm doing? Am I part of his, his market research? Am I part of his production planning? Am I part of his supply planning? Am I part of his customer service? I think if we do that and get into a value chain, we have a great partnership going, because understand the trust among logistic industry and the customer is the highest. If after any bank or anybody else, the customer trust us the most, when they want to take some opinion.
Jani Sahab, I totally agree with you, and that actually brings me to the winding up of the whole thing. And friends who have been listening to us, you've heard what the situation is, what the challenges are, what the pain points are, and what's the way of going forward. But at the end of the day, I would still like to mention to all of you is that, look, you have to work as partners. You cannot work separately. It cannot be a one-way street. It has to be a two-way street. And the onus also is on the suppliers. If they're looking at something that kind, the onus on the corporate also to increase the level of the logistic partners, because you both have to be on the same page. You cannot be on a different page. So I think it's an equal responsibility from both sides, and that's why we want to take it forward. And pharmaceutical becoming the most important part of it, we have to, and we should become the pharmacy to the world, in terms of volume as well as value chain, not just one way, not volumes only, but in value chain also. And I think that's the way forward. I want to thank Dr. Mathur, Ravi Prasad Mathur. I think thank you so much. You are a doctorate on supply chain management. It was a pleasure to be with you and hear your points of view. And of course, Dr. Jani, everybody knows you in the industry. I have to thank you, of course, but I'll be surprised if people don't know you in the industry. That's the way I look at it. You cannot be in that industry. But thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have both of you today. Thank you very, very much. And let's keep in touch and continue the whole thing. Thank you very much, and namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Pleasure being on the forum. Thank you.